President Trump's plans for the Gaza Strip were widely condemned today as amounting to ethnic cleansing. Speaking at a news conference with the Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu, Mr. Trump said he wants America to take over the territory, resettle its people elsewhere and turn Gaza into a Riviera-style resort. Well, here's Keir Starmer insisted Palestinians must be allowed home. Here's our US correspondent, Dan Rivers.
The White House has seen its fair share of historic moments.
Thank you very much.
But as Donald Trump arrived with the Israeli Prime Minister, he was about to toss a foreign policy hand grenade into the world order.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it.
He appeared to be approaching one of the most intractable political issues as a real estate problem with a simple solution.
I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
And he didn't rule out sending US troops to secure what's left of Gaza while it was rebuilt into some sort of Middle Eastern Monaco. For those who have called the Strip home for generations, there was bemusement and anger.
This is our country. If they want two states, fine. If not, we remain here. Where else would we go? We won't go anywhere. This is our land, the land of our ancestors.
Trump is wrong. Palestinians are not going to give up so easily.
Hamas put out a statement saying Trump's idea showed a, quote, deep ignorance of Palestine and the region. And at the United Nations, a clear rejection of the idea that Gazans could be relocated to neighbouring countries.
Our homeland is our homeland. If part of it is destroyed, the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian people selected the choice to return to it.
I think it's an unserious proposal by an unserious man.
Those who've spent their careers trying to negotiate peace in the Middle East are withering about Trump's plan.
I think the president's done a lot of potential damage. He's tethered the United States to an approach that could best be described as forced displacement. Worst, I'm sure Palestinians will look at it as ethnic cleansing.
On Capitol Hill today, reaction was divided along predictable party lines.
Donald Trump had kind of floated this for some time. We have known that this is Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. It is horrific. It is the definition of ethnic cleansing.
I think this is a good development. We have to back Israel 100%, and so whatever form that takes, we're interested in having that discussion. But it was a surprising development, but I think it's one that we'll applaud.
The proposal for the US to own Gaza completely contradicts Donald Trump's America First agenda. But the doubting voices from within his own party have so far been muted. These days, there is little room for Republican dissent, no matter how incendiary the idea. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Washington.
Well, I'm going to be speaking to our political editor, Robert Peston, in just a moment. But first, let's turn to our senior international correspondent, John Irvine, who's in Tel Aviv. John, predictably, this is making waves, isn't it? Is it really going to happen?
I think there are several reasons, actually, to believe that it'll never happen. Two of those reasons are Iraq and Afghanistan, proof that America has a history of interventions going horribly wrong. The US military has already intervened in Gaza and failed. You may recall that last year they brought over a floating harbour and pier to try to up the number of aid trucks going onto the Strip. That didn't work out and had to be abandoned. When you listen to what Donald Trump has been saying about the plight of the Palestinians in Gaza, I think he is genuinely sympathetic. But what he doesn't seem to be aware of is the fact that their history of displacement makes his proposal particularly repellent to them. This shock announcement, Mary, was a first of sorts. It's the first time that anyone has gone public with a plan for the day after on the Gaza Strip. Yes, it's a very radical plan. And I think the most optimistic take on this is that it's an attempt by Donald Trump to put out an opening bid on negotiations, an attempt to prompt everyone involved, particularly the neighboring Arab states, to be creative about Gaza's future, to come up with a plan about who's going to govern it, who's going to rebuild it, and who's going to pay for all that. The problem for Mr. Trump is that he's the leader of the free world, and to a lot of people this sounds like he's trying to justify ethnic cleansing, and that makes it very unpalatable.
John Irvine in Tel Aviv, thank you. And before we talk to Robert Peston, here's what the Prime Minister had to say in the Commons today.
They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
OK, well, let's go to Robert Peston, who's preparing for his programme tonight. Robert, the Prime Minister making his feelings pretty clear there.
Yes, up to a point, I would say. You know, ever since Donald Trump was elected, and after, of course, you know, all those quotes from him and his colleagues in the past being critical of Donald Trump were dredged up, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said he should not and will not choose between Europe and America, that Britain has to have decent relations with both. Now, you know, he was implicitly in the House of Commons today very critical of what Donald Trump has announced. And I have to say, that wasn't a surprise because although some people would say, well, Keir Starmer's approach to growing the economy is a bit confused, he faces in both directions. You know, there are some who say, well, is he against poverty? Is he not against poverty? When it comes to perhaps the sort of one really big thing, he has consistently been clear all his professional life, for decades even before he became Prime Minister, which he passionately believes in adhering to the international rule of law. And what Donald Trump said overnight was in complete breach of international rule of law. The idea that America should take control of Gaza and, you know, to use a phrase we heard in Dan's little film, ethnically cleanse the Palestinians, shunt them off to sort of Jordan or Egypt. This is the sort of thing that would horrify Sir Keir Starmer. Now, it is still striking to me that he can say in the House of Commons he's opposed to all of that, but not name Donald Trump. I'm intrigued to know whether or not Trump sitting in the White House, when he gets briefed on all of this, he will feel that it is a criticism and that so far the, I would say, sort of rather gentle words of sort of modest praise for Starmer that we've heard from Trump will be sustained. As it happens, it's quite a sort of resonant moment for this you know, astonishing event overnight, because Peter Mandelson, a very controversial choice by Keir Starmer to be our ambassador in Washington. Controversial because Trump's people liked the previous ambassador and didn't really like the kind of things that Peter Mandelson said about Donald Trump, really critical things about Donald Trump only a few years ago. It's his first day in the job. And so I think many of us would say Peter Mandelson is going to have his work cut out, shall we say, try to be as friendly as possible with this bold president.
Robert Peston in West London there, thank you.